how you like it, yeah.
What's up, and welcome back to the We All Know TV podcast. My name is Leaf. I am your host. This is a podcast where we watch the first episode of a show and then talk about it. I know I've been gone for a while. I got sick, and then it ended up lasting for 2 weeks. And then after that, I went on a trip for a week, so I threw myself off. I didn't record ahead of time. I didn't plan to be sick that long. So in order to kind of fix that solution for the rest of this work week, I guess you can say, up to Friday, I will be uploading episodes every single day up to Friday. So after today, which by the time you'll be hearing this will be Tuesday, there'll be an episode Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday. And then after that, we'll be back to the regular schedule of every Tuesday. So sorry about all that. I will get back on track. I did not expect, things to go that way. But now that we are back to normal, we are talking about Charmed, but the 98 version. Last time I did the 2018 version. So I actually grew up watching Charmed with my mom, but I haven't seen it since I was little. And by little, I mean like it's probably watching this when I was like 5 years old. So it's been, and I'm 30 now, so it's been a while. But yeah, so we'll start like I usually do. If it's your first time here, I usually read the IMDb kind of like plot synopsis of like or summary, whatever you want to call it, for the episode, and then I go beat by beat for the episode based on the notes that I took. So, Charmed, 1998 version. The premise is 3 sisters reunite after the death of their beloved grandmother and learn they have inherited much more than the family manor, which is interesting because I don't think the episode deals with that at all. There's like hints to it, but we'll get there. I don't remember the show running that long, but according to IMDb, it had 8 seasons, and I was like, damn, that's a long ass time. You know what I mean? 8 seasons is so, especially I feel like nowadays in the whole like streaming Netflix type era where you're like, maybe we'll get a second season if we're lucky. But yeah, let's hop into the episode. I'm already rambling off the top. First thing that caught me off guard was I could have sworn like the episodes were only like 20 minutes, because this is back in the 90s, but like when I started it and it said it was 43 minutes, I was like, oh, this is surprising. I didn't know that it would be this long. Not that I'm not used to it now, the way that episodes are structured to be like an hour long now, but like back then I remember everything being like in and out, like short 20 minutes. So I was like, oh, okay, this is a pretty meaty episode. And then right off the bat, we're introduced to a witch who's doing her own little witchcraft inside of her apartment. It seems that somebody's watching her outside. When the killer walks in, she's like, oh, it's you. So it's like, oh, she knows him. And then she gets murdered. And it's like, oh, okay. So she knew him. Interesting. Let's see if that gets unpacked. We then meet our first main sister, Piper. She comes home. She's talking with her sister, Prue. Prue's like, yo, I found our mom's spirit board, which is really just a Ouija board. And it says on this back, this whole like little poem type thing. It's like the power of 3. And she's like, I don't know what that means. And then they're talking about their other sister, Phoebe, who Prue's like, I don't like her. I don't want to talk to her. Like, whatever. And then the spirit board, or the Ouija board, moves on its own. Then the episode hops into the opening theme, which I haven't heard, again, in probably like 20 years. But I still know some of the words somehow. And I was really surprised because I feel like at a certain point, it became a thing in television where the first episode would just be the episode. And then the second episode was when you would introduce the theme, at least in my head. So having an opening theme off the bat, I was like, okay, this is cool. And this is what I thought, because you never know. Sometimes you think you go back to watch an old show and like maybe the theme was different in the beginning. And you're like, oh, so it wasn't what I thought it was until then. But no, here it is what it is. And it is good. Then we get shots of the city. And when you get the shots of the city, and of course just based on how the show looks, but it's really the city shots that are like, oh, this is a 90s show. Like just on the way that the city looks and the way that the camera like grain kind of, like the style of it, it's just all like 90s. So it has that old feel, which is kind of cool because it gets, there's almost like a sense of like authenticity to it, in a sense of like more groundedness, as opposed to like now where everything's like more digital cameras and it feels like way too clean sometimes. But we are introduced to Andy Trudeau, the detective. He gets on the scene. His partner, I guess, is like, yo, I've been paging you. And if you don't know what a pager is, it's like the old way to like text people, like before cell phones. It was old to me when I was little. So like, I wouldn't be surprised if you don't know what I'm talking about now. But I thought it was like a funny little throwback to anyone who even knows what a pager is anymore. And then what was interesting is Trudeau's like, yo, these aren't random murders. Like this, whoever's doing this is killing witches specifically. And we find out this is actually the third murder in 3 weeks. And it kind of threw me off, but I liked it. The fact that like, he's like, no, this is a specific case. And he's clearly doing his research. And then the other guy's just kind of like, whatever, like another woman's murdered. And he's like, no, this is like deeper. You know, like this guy's doing his homework and everyone else is just like, I'm just here. We then move to Piper talking to Prue, and she's like, yeah, I think we should probably have someone move in, maybe our sister. And Prue's not having it. She just like, I don't want to talk or hang out with Phoebe. Seems like Phoebe hasn't been around in a while. She's been in New York. We find out that Phoebe has lost her job and that she's in debt. And Prue's like, of course she's coming home then. And so Phoebe walks to the door. Prue's like, of course he didn't tell me that she's coming. And there's this small little joke of like, she's like, oh, I forgot to pay for the cab. And because again, this is before Uber and Lyft for the young listeners. And Piper grabs Prue's purse and she's like, yo, that's my money. And she's like, I'll pay you back later. And she like pays for the taxi with her money. Sister things, you know what I mean? Sibling camaraderie. And then you find out like the big crux between the two sisters is that Prue's like, I know you want to come home and you want to sell grandma's house. And Phoebe's like, I don't want that. She's like, I know you really think that I was trying to get with your man, but that's not true at all. And then it doesn't really go anywhere. They kind of separate from there. And then Prue is talking to Piper up in the room. And she's like, listen, I know Prue had to grow up fast and like take care of us. And she had to basically be our mom. But she's like, I don't need a mom anymore. We're adults. I need a sister. And then this is where Prue starts to show that, where she comes in for a second and she's like, hey, this is the coldest room in the house. I brought you an extra blanket. You know, she's mad at her sister, but she's still a sister. And you can see clearly like she is the motherly type. Then we go back to Trudeau. And again, he's like, oh, they must have been killed with like this or a knife. And he just, he's displaying that he knows that this is like specifically towards witches and that he's been doing the research. And his partner is just like, yo, you're talking crazy. He's like, if you keep talking like this, like we're gonna have a problem. Which I thought was weird, because it's like, if you're trying to solve a case, I feel like knowing the most about it would be, pertinent to like getting the job done. But because it's all like magic and stuff, he's like, I don't want to talk about this, dude. And then the cat hops on the table. Trudeau goes to pet it. Morris is like, yo, don't touch it. That cat's been attacking everybody. But the cat's chill. And then it has the symbol of like the Triskelion, which was on the spirit board that the sisters had. So it's like, oh, connection. Then we hop back and the sisters are casually playing with the Ouija board. And I was like, bro, like you guys never had, like you guys are adults, you're not teenagers. I was like, you guys never have like scary movies or nothing? Like, what are you doing over here? And there's a small little fun joke about their sister. Like, will she ever have sex again? It's like, oh, okay, yeah, definitely sibling things to be talking about. But the board starts to move on its own. Phoebe's like, yo, this is crazy. And the other sisters are like, nah, we don't see anything. And every time they look away, it moves again. And Piper sees it just a little bit. And then Phoebe's like, listen, you guys don't believe me, but I spelled out attic. I think we need to go to the attic. And then the power goes out. Then Piper, the rational one, is like, nah, I don't like this. I'm going home. I'm getting out of here. Like, I'll see y'all later. And then Prue's like, chill out. We'll just go to the basement and I'll flip on the breakers or whatever and get the power back on. And Phoebe's like, no, we gotta go to the attic. That's what the board said. So right here, I'm like, okay, I'm in with Piper. I get where Prue's coming from. Phoebe's a little too gung-ho on the magic for me. But, I mean, I guess there's that, morbid curiosity. So, can't completely blame her. Phoebe goes upstairs, tries to open the attic. It does not open, and then when she goes to walk away, the door just slides open, and this is where I would be out, but she's like, I gotta go in there. She goes in there, and this light comes down from out the window. It is beaming on this trunk. The trunk open, or it starts to glow. Again, this is where I definitely actually, you know what, I'd probably stay because it's glowing, but this is where part of me would probably be like, we gotta definitely get out of here now. But she opens it up. She sees the Book of Shadows, which we'll learn is the Book of Shadows. She opens it, and then, of course, for the audience, us, she starts reading it out loud. And I'm like, girl, you don't know what you're saying. And I'm not even superstitious for real like that. But she's just casually, like, just reading a spell. And I was like, nope, could never. And then downstairs, the chandelier starts to glow, and there's a picture of the three sisters like separate, and then they like slide so they're right next to each other, which I thought was a cool little touch, and like something that you wouldn't notice, or like if they did notice it, it'd be like, is this picture a little different? So right off the bat, I was already enjoying this more than the 2018 one, simply because the 2018 one just like threw all the rules and everything at them all at once, where this was a slow draw of like, hey, we're slowly, like, sure, there's someone in the beginning that clearly knows magic, but she's dead. And so now these girls are like slowly, like, slowly magical things are happening. We're like sliding in the magic bit by bit. And I'm like, yeah, I like this. So it cuts to, no, I forgot where it was. Oh, so Phoebe's like, yo, I found this book. I read it a little bit. We're supposed to get powers. Her sister's like, yo, you're crazy. And then there's the man who clearly murdered the first lady outside. And then he just walks away, which I thought was weird. There's no real explanation to it. And that was the one part I was like, okay, I don't really understand what's happening here. Cuts to the next day. Phoebe's like, I didn't sleep. I read the book all night long. And I'm like, this girl's crazy. And then she's talking to Piper. Piper's not really trying to hear it for real. And she's like, listen, Piper, we had an ancestor. She had 3 powers. There's, you can move stuff, stop time, and see the future. And she already knew about the prophecy of like 3 sisters. And we're supposed to have powers and like save the world and all that, whatever. And Piper's like, nah, I'm gonna go to work now. So you figure that out and calm down. We cut to Prue. Turns out she works at a museum. She has been working on this project. She gets demoted, and this dude's like, listen, honey, I guess his name's Roger. They used to date. He's the fucking worst. He's like, listen, like, they didn't want you to do it, so then I did it, but I did it for you. Like, sucks to suck, but hey, you still got a job or whatever. I'm like, yo, this guy gotta go. And she's not happy with it, as she should be, or she should, yeah. And then when she leaves, his pen kind of like inks on his shirt, and then he grabs the pen and it explodes in his face. And I was like, okay, it's a little weird. And then we cut to Piper, who's trying to be a chef. She's cooking. This dude comes over, and they're trying to make him French, and he does a bad French accent. Like, maybe not bad, but it's clearly like he's faking it. And then she's like, wait, I didn't get to finish the thing you're about to eat. And then as he's about to eat it, she stops time, and she's like, what the? And then she like fixes the thing real quick, adds a little extra salt or whatever, and then he eats it, and he's like, this is pretty good. It's like, okay, so some things are happening. Powers are manifesting. Again, I like the slow draw of like things happening. Like Piper's powers just kind of happen, and hers, because she stops time, it's just like, oh my god, what just happened? But like with Prue, it seems like she just did the pen thing, and like it wasn't like in her face that she even knew it. She just kind of like did it when she was walking away. Sorry, I hit my mic. And then yeah, so again, I'm appreciating more the slow like in build of not only me as the audience, but the characters kind of going into this magical world, as opposed to, again, 2018 just being like, here's everything you need to know. Okay, do it or don't. We don't care. But then we get to, we go back to Prue. She's like, you know what? I quit. And Roger's like, what? Like, don't do this. He's like, you'll never work in this town again type stuff. He's like, like, where are you gonna go? Like, stuff like that. He's just being sucky all like as much as he can be. And she's like, fuck you, and I'm out of here. And she unintentionally like pulls up his tie, so he starts choking on it to the point where he has to like grab scissors and like chop the tie off his neck so he doesn't choke, and he like falls over and he's like, what the fuck, like what was that? And I like that small little joke because if that happened to somebody, you'd be like, what the hell's going on here? Why did I almost die just now? Because my tie almost choked me. And then we go to Piper, and she's at a payphone. And if you don't know what a payphone is, before there used to be this little box or this little glass room out on the sidewalk that you would go in and you pay money to call people. And it was weird for me because when I was little, they were still kind of around, but they're clearly gone now. So like seeing it's like, oh yeah, that used to be a thing. But Jeremy, her boyfriend, she gets out the payphone. He's immediately there, and he's like, congratulations on your new job. And she's like, how did you know I was here and like what I was doing? And he's like, of course I know, because you're the best, and like I support you and whatever. And I was really like, red flag. I was like, I don't like this guy, he must be bad. We cut to Phoebe. She's riding her bike. She sees the future of these two guys. I don't know if they're supposed to be kids, but they're clearly grown men. These two guys, they're on roller skates, and they go and they get hit by a car. And she's like, oh no, I have to stop this. So she goes and she like slides and causes an accident on herself. That way those two get saved, and she is sent to the hospital. Now at the hospital, Andy Trudeau, the detective, runs into Prue. And it seems like, oh, they already know each other. And he's like, yo, why don't we go get a cup of coffee? And I'm like, oh, tensions are already high. I was like, good thing you're not with Roger anymore. This Andy guy seems like a catch. And they just kind of catch up, and it seems like they had a thing, but, life went in different directions. But maybe now they have a chance to get back together. Then we are with Phoebe and Prue, and they're talking. And Phoebe's like, listen, you got powers. I got powers. Like... and Prue's like, listen, I don't have powers, okay? I'm not doing anything like that. Can you pass the milk or whatever? And then the milk just slides over to her. And then she thinks about putting the milk in her coffee, and then it just happens because she moves it with her mind. And she goes, okay, maybe I do have powers. But even then, she doesn't really seem to be on board with the whole situation. This is freaking her out. And she's like, aren't witches bad and stuff? And Phoebe's like, no, there's good witches, but there are warlocks that are evil. So, we get to choose who we want to be. I was like, okay, cool. I like that there is a sense of, you're like, hey, you get the powers, but, just like being a hero or a villain, it's up to you what you want to do with them. Unlike the 2018 one where it's like, you either have powers or you don't have powers. Like, you want to be human or you want to be, a witch. Where this one is like, no, the powers are here. Like, they're not leaving anytime soon as far as we know. So we have to decide, who we want to be. And then it seems like that cat from the apartment is following them, so there must be more to the story. And then we get a small scene of Piper being in the car with Jeremy, and Jeremy essentially is like, yo, I want to take you somewhere special. We're not going to go back to my house. Again, red flag for me. I was like, this guy's bad. Prue is struggling with their powers when they go to get some medicine and like a convenience store, and she's like looking, and Phoebe's like, listen, just accept who you are, and we'll like figure it out. And Prue's not having it, but she gets angry, and then the medicine she needs flies towards her, and she's like, see, for Phoebe, she's like, see, every time you get mad, you get like your powers activate. And she's like, imagine what would happen if I like brought up our dad who we're estranged with. And she's like, stop. And then she brings up the dad, and then Prue crashes like the whole medicine aisle. And then she's like, okay, like, I got powers. Jeremy takes Piper to this abandoned building, and for a small second, Piper's like, I'm not going in there. And then she proceeds to go in there because he's like, oh, come on, babe, I want to show you something cool. And I was like, hell no, girl, you better turn, like, you should have turned around. But she did not listen, and it's for the plot. Jeremy pulls out a knife, And he's like, finally, like, I know you and your sisters have powers. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill them. I'm going to get that big upgrade and everything's going to be awesome. And this is where he uses his powers. And this is clearly like the power of the 90s where he uses like fire around his fingers and it almost looks cool, but it doesn't. And then they do this weird, like, now it would probably be like like a filter that we have on like TikTok or like Snapchat or something like that, but they like warp his face a little bit and he's supposed to be scary, but he just looks dumb. And I was like, all right, we only had so much technology back then. But Piper freezes time. She's like, I gotta get out of here. He gets free for a second, but she kicks him in the face and then she runs away. She gets back home. She's like, yo, Jeremy's evil. He's tried to kill me. We have to figure this out. Phoebe, you're the one with the book. Tell me what to do. And so the three of them do a spell. And they put a rose into this clay doll. And they say Jeremy's name. And they throw him in the thing. And then, as Jeremy's like running to go get them, thorns pop out of his skin. And it's done practically. So it looks cool and like visceral. And it's like, oh, that hurts. But unfortunately, Phoebe has a vision. And they're like, oh, it didn't work. He's still coming for us. But even then, there's something about practical effects. Even in the beginning with the random witch who was like pointing her finger at probably like trick candles and they were like lighting and then having like the thorns come out of the guy's skin, that it just feels like the magic is actually real as opposed to like 2018 where everything is CG and it's like, this doesn't feel like, I'm watching something real. It feels like I'm watching, like 2018 felt more like MCU type stuff where it's like, okay, it's real, but I can tell everything's a computer. Where this one felt more almost like in a world of like Batman, like that more realistic, grounded, like, oh, magic is real, But Jeremy shows up. Prue uses her telekinesis to like hold him. She's like, run. They go upstairs to go hide and like figure something out. They hide in the attic. They block the door. Jeremy's like, listen, I'm stronger than you guys. I'm going to get through that door. Like, don't worry about it. He like pushes the thing out the way, blows up the door. He throws his fireball and it's not the best looking, but he like throws a ring of fire around them. And it's like, oh no, they're really in trouble. And then he's like, nah, he switches the fire ring with an air ring. He like makes a little tornado around them. I was like, this is so less scarier than a ring of fire. I was like, why did you think this would be a better option? And then the sisters were like, yo, we got to use the power of 3, like the thing set on the back of the Ouija board. And they say it like the power of 3, power of 3. And this is where the episode kind of lost me a little bit because they're clearly using their powers to like get rid of Jeremy. And it's not clear as to why Jeremy isn't attacking them. He's just standing there after they're in a little tornado. And he starts monologuing, being like, oh, even if you stop me, like there are others that will come for you and your powers. And they're just like, power 3, power 3. And then he's like, we're going to get you eventually. And then he explodes. And it was like, there should have been a better directing of like, hey, as they're saying power of 3, you're like kind of like, writhing a little bit in pain to show like, oh, this is affecting him, rather than him just standing there being like, we'll get you someday. Because then it just felt like they didn't know what to do. So they're like, you just stand there and wait until we blow you up. So I feel like that could have been directed a little bit better. It then cuts to the next day. Andy shows up. He's like, Prue, I'm trying to take you out on a date. What's good? I like that she goes, hey, my life's complicated right now, but maybe I can call you. Because I feel like everyone else would have been like, or, the 2018 one was just kind of like, oh, yeah, we can date and everything's fine and blah, blah, blah. Where this one's, she's like, my life just drastically changed. I'm fighting like demons and I have magic now. I might have to figure some things out to see if we even can date. And I was like, I like that this is practical. And again, it makes it feel like a more realistic world as opposed to 2018 where it's just kind of like, yeah, magic and fun. But yeah, she says, I'll call you. And then the cat, I forget at some point, the cat made it to their house. And as Andy's going back to his car, he sees the cat and he's like, So I feel like down the line, they're like setting it up for him to learn everything that's going on, especially because this man does his research like a good cop. And then as they go in the house, Prue is about to close the door and she's like, you know what? I'm going to use my mind. And she closes the door and it's like Charmed, episode 1. It's like, all right, okay. So it's the first time here. I have a 3-point rating scale. I always forget. I swear every episode I always forget what to call it. I have a 3-point scale. So it is one and done. It is give it a chance, and I'm in. So for this episode, I'm giving it an I am in. Again, the thing that I think makes it stand out from the latest version. Well, I didn't say this when I was reading the plot, but there's a lot of small jokes that I feel like could land even with a younger audience now. They might not get the exact reference, but like them being like, oh, what am I supposed to do? Like put on a hat and fly around in a broom? Or like, oh yeah, I did a magic spell and like my head spun around and like threw up and I was like floating on the wall. Like, like there are references to like Halloween and like, not the movie, but like, like just being a witch or like scary movies and stuff that I think a regular or like a new age audience would understand. I think having the effects for the most part or like half the time be practical makes the magic feel more real. And then even when they do digital, for the most part, it's good. There are some, again, like the face warping thing that's like, ugh. But I mean, if the rest of the show continues from just based off how they did in the first episode, it feels more realistic. Like I could see myself having magic like in real life. And then the other thing was that, again, there's that drip feeding of like them slowly using their powers, and then even then, like when they're powerful, they still don't know exactly what they're doing, right? Like they do a spell and it doesn't clearly work. But yeah, and so I think having you along with the actual characters kind of step into this world slowly and see what's going on is way more interesting than just 2018s, which I keep bringing back, of just throwing them in and being like, hey, you're witches and you have powers and you're gonna save the world if you want, and if not, you can not do this because you have a choice. And the last thing is that 2018 is clearly on, the Hollywood feminist movement. So there are moments where like Mel will be like, oh, you think I can't do this because I'm a woman? And like you expect her to like look at the camera type feel. Whereas if you go back to Prue, when Roger takes over her project and is like, oh, you'll thank me for it, she just up and quits, and she's like, whatever, like you can do this on your own, let's see how well you do by yourself, and she just like up and leaves. And I think that's way better representation of a strong woman than having the show like repeat to me and like tell me like, hey, in case you didn't know, she's a strong woman. It's the show don't tell of it all that I think this first episode nailed more than the latest one. So yeah, that being said, again, I'm going to give this an I'm in. I would definitely watch another episode. And as I already said, I already did when I was little. I watched who knows how many seasons. Spoilers, eventually there's one of the sisters dies, and then there's another sister. So I watched all the way up to that season. So for sure. But yeah, I liked it. That being said, again, because of me being sick and the trip, there will be 3 more episodes for the rest of this week. So Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So look out for that. And then again, I will be uploading every Tuesday. That being said, if you want to see what's going on with the podcast or me, you can follow me on Twitter or X, if you want to call it that, at Little Leafers. So little Leafers. And yeah, I will see you guys next time. Peace.